Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sin Bin. Our next guest, it can be safely said, is the physical manifestation of roots reggae in the Baltimore scene. This band has over 20 years of performance experience, sold over 100,000 copies as an independent label, put out over 10 albums working with recording giants like Jim Fox, performed at Barack Obama's inauguration, and performed in front of the troops. It is my pleasure to welcome Scott Painter, the driving force behind Jawworks. How you doing, Scotty P?
I'm doing well, my friend. Thank you so much for having me on, man.
No problem. I ran into you while watching Rocksteady. You made an impromptu appearance at my hometown at Sherry Punjab Indian Restaurant in Media, PA.
Yep.
Many people have told me that you are a native of Media,
Yep.
and we will get into that in the process of the interview. But we start at the beginning. Usually, I ask artists to give me the elevator pitch about their band. I don't think that is necessary for you.
Thank you.
I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know who you are. Um, I just want to start at the beginning and say that I looked at your website, and one of the lines that comes up when I'm trying, whenever I interview somebody, I try to identify precisely what their style is and what their influence is. But looking through your library, I had a little bit of a challenge. And
Ah, interesting.
your website says what Jawworks does best is introduce the novice music listener to the fullness of reggae music and culture. So I want to start in the beginning and say, aside from the fact that you do seem to encompass the library of different kinds of styles out there, I just want to know personally, who are your musical influences? What got you into reggae? What do you listen to? What really does it for you?
Wow, I love the question. When I was a young boy growing up in Wallingford, Pennsylvania, my
Not too
brother
far from
Tim,
here.
yeah, right down the road, down 252 there.
Right.
We lived on Governor's Drive, and that was in a neighborhood called Sproul Estates. And my brother Tim was in high school at the time, and I was about 8 or 9 when this happened. But my brother Tim saw Bob Marley down in Philly, and he was a sophomore in high school. So this was roughly 1978,
Okay.
1979. And my brother Tim got a call from a friend of his, and she said, "I got 2 tickets to Bob Marley. Do you want to go?" And he was like, "Absolutely." So he went. They went down on the R3, the train. They left from Media or Wallingford and took the train down to Philly, and he saw Bob Marley as a 15-year-old high school sophomore. So once my brother Tim saw Bob Marley, I was pretty much being indoctrinated with Bob Marley. I mean, it was Bob Marley and the Wailers all day, every day in my house when I was a little kid. So I was already listening to a lot of music. I got my AC/DC records and my Rolling Stones, my Rolling Stones indoctrination was already well underway. But then when Bob Marley and the Wailers came into my life, I pretty much put everything else down. And from like
Mhm.
1979, 1978 till today, reggae became my number one music.
Mhm.
So that's where reggae came into my life first. And then through the 80s, it was Bob Marley. It was Third World, Burning Spear, it was everybody. Steel Pulse, all the reggae bands I could find, I devoured them. So I was into reggae from an early age before I was even 10. And then by the time I got down to Baltimore to come to college at Loyola in 1989, I had about 3 milk crates full of vinyl records that I showed up to
Wow.
college with.
Okay, so
Yep.
if it was the 80s collection and you were in a suburban life pretty much identical to mine,
Mhm.
you're slightly older than me, but not by much.
Not much.
Um uh it was Bob Marley, Inner Circle, Steel Pulse, Third World, um
Peter Tosh.
Peter Tosh, Buddy Whaler,
Yeah, Eka Mouse, Yellow
Eka
Man.
Mouse, Yellow Man. Okay. All right. So uh
And like you said earlier, Dennis Brown was huge. One of my biggest influences as a singer was definitely Dennis Brown.
so I nailed it, huh?
Oh yeah, you were on point, Chris. Very much on point. You could
Okay.
hear
I heard it. I heard it. I was like, I was listening to Mama, and I was just like, this is channeling the spirit of Second Chance.
Thanks so
That's what
much.
I heard.
Thank you
You
so
know,
much. That's a compliment, man. I appreciate that.
yeah. So, and like I said, these down label in terms of vocal influences, I think of Dennis Brown, Gregory Isaacs, Everton,
Oh yeah,
Freddie McGregor. You
all of the
know,
above. All of the
right.
above.
Okay, so let's skip around here. You talked about Wallingford being here, and obviously you have quite strong relationships with many artists here. And I'm wondering, did you play with any of these guys before you moved to Baltimore?
Not before I moved, but since I've been down here, that's where I met Bralta. I met Dan and Ben when we had a very
You're talking
brief.
about Dan, just for the audience, Dan Porban of the Exaltations and Ben Bean, right?
Yep, those two guys
Okay.
are gems. They're gems up there. I was living in media for about 5 years. I lived up there from 2007 to 2007 to 2014. I left Jaw Works and came back to the Delaware Valley and was living in media.
I did
So
not
I
know
got
that.
Yeah, I did. I was out of Jaw Works from '07 to 2012, and then I commuted from Delaware County to Baltimore from 2012 to 2014. I was back with Jaw Works, and then back in 2014, I finally moved back down to Baltimore City.
Okay.
So that's when I met those guys. We were doing a very briefly lived trio called Powers, and it was an acoustic guitar and vocal trio, and that's where I met Dan and Ben, man. And those guys,
Well,
we had
again,
we had an
but
amazing harmony structure, the three
yeah,
of
I was
us.
gonna say between you and the two of them, that
It's
is some
pretty
type of
awesome.
unparalleled harmony. That's not common. That's not common even in reggae in the United States.
We were like the mighty diamonds of media, man. You know what I mean? It
Okay.
was unheard of, dude. You didn't hear harmonies like that too often. So it was bittersweet meeting them because then right after we did that project, I moved back to Baltimore. But we've maintained contact, and I try and sing with those guys whenever I can.
Mhm. So I mean, you came back here to go see Rock Steady. You still have family here?
Oh yeah, my mom and my brother Chris live on State Street, and
Oh, okay.
My brother Tim and his wife live near the Wendy's there in Media, and my brother Will and his wife and family live in Swarthmore, and my brother Rob and his wife and family live in Parkside. So
I
I
see.
got all four brothers and my mom are still up there.
So you are a frequent commuter between Maryland and here.
Yeah, I'm up
Um,
a few times a month, man.
it looks like you and I have crossed paths. I don't know if I told you this, but I grew up in Gaithersburg,
Oh, that's wild.
and I grew up in Gaithersburg in Maryland, and I lived pretty much everywhere in the DC area you could imagine, downtown, Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax,
Wow.
and everything. And it was my whole life until October of 21, and then I moved up here to Media because I had family here. I was born here in Drexel Hill,
I
and
was too.
my
I was I
my
was
my
born in
family
Delaware
moved
County.
down when I was 5.
I was born
So
at Delaware County Memorial Hospital.
so I decided to reconnect with my roots. So I
Nice.
came back. All right. So that's the media question. Let's talk a little bit more about Jaw Works. How did the current incarnation of the band come together?
We were good friends in college between 1989 and 1993. Myself, Kevin Gorman, the guitar player, Mike
Mhm.
Hamilton, the bass player, and our keyboard player, Brian Gorman. That's Kevin's younger brother. He transferred from Villanova to Loyola in 1992. So by the time we graduated Loyola College in Baltimore in 1993, that's when Jaw Works officially began as a group. In the spring of 1993, we opened up for Mikey Dread at Max's on Broadway in Baltimore City in May of '93. That was our first official Jaw Works show on the market. We played a few open mics and campus events at Loyola, but opening up for Mikey Dread was our official debut in Baltimore reggae scene. And that's where we started, and we're really proud of the history. We're on 31 years now.
Yeah. I saw you. Sorry, I'm off topic here. I saw you in a video opening up for what was then the Philly Reggae All Stars for Sizzla 10 years ago.
I I
Was it
don't think
no, it was the Sizzler?
I don't
I
think I
for,
was at a Sizzler show.
no, it was Beres Hammond.
That was yeah.
Beres
Was that
Hammond.
yeah, that sounds a little more familiar.
Yeah, yeah, Beres Hammond.
Where was
Um,
that show? Was that you have to refresh my memory.
I think it was the Keswick. I don't remember. I don't
Yeah.
remember off the top of my head. But that
Or it might have
was
been Ardmore Music Hall, one of those
yeah,
maybe.
yeah. So that I was doing that while I was doing research for Exaltation. So
Oh yeah,
okay.
cool.
All right. So okay, so you got the firm incarnation, 100,000 off of an independent label. Is that how did that come about? How did you do that?
Back during the 1990s, we didn't have any real management to speak of or distribution deals whatsoever. So we were just tirelessly playing live shows. We played probably 200 shows a year for about 10 years straight, from about 96 to about 2006. We were playing full-time musicians. Nobody had a job other than Jaw Works. So we played up and down the East Coast, and everywhere we played, we had a merch stand set up, and we sold CDs and T-shirts endlessly. So
Uh-huh.
from Feast or Famine, that was our first CD in 1994, up until when I left the band originally in '06. At the end of '06, we had put out an album called One for You. So everywhere we played, we sold CDs at live shows. We sold them through mail order. Once the jawworks.com website was up, we sold them online. So our CD sale game was strong. I mean, and we didn't have really any help whatsoever. So it's an amazing story of how many albums we sold. And the thing with Jawworks is we were like a communist nation. Like we didn't sell CDs and then dole out money to ourselves. We sold CDs and we put the money back into merchandise. So it was just a revolving door of
Got
revenue
it.
that went back into the band and helped
Yeah.
promote the band through CD sales and T-shirts and stickers.
Yeah, I remember watching an interview with the rapper J. Rue the Damager,
Uh huh.
who said that, because he did everything. Everything he did was independent label. And one thing he said, look, you if you sell two or 300,000 CDs as an independent producer, you make a lot of money. If you sell two or 300,000 CDs as a signed artist, your career is over.
Yeah, yeah. You're getting dropped. You're getting dropped.
Right? So
True.
like what he said that like kind of stuck in my head. And I'm like, yeah, well, um, you've managed to withstand the test of time. You've done this for a long time. I've seen you twice. I saw you at opening for Giant Panda at Ardmore Music Hall,
Yeah,
and I forget where the other one was. All these shows run together.
I know how
Um,
you feel.
but you like um no, I was surprised. I mean, when you got on there, you just you did the roots thing and it kind of came naturally from you. The same way with the exaltations. The harmony thing, you have an ear for it or you don't.
Yeah,
And
it's a labor of love, and if this bug bites you, then you're infected. And I look at it like that. It wasn't easy doing Jawworks music all those years, and this is before the Cali reggae scene, and this is before any real integration of reggae music into American popular culture. It was a subset genre
well,
all
no,
throughout that time.
it wasn't before. There was another one. I mean, I got into all this reggae stuff through hip hop dance hall.
Yeah,
So
that was a window, but
yeah,
as far as like the ubiquitous of reggae, it didn't exist the way it does now back then.
no,
And
no,
we were
it
probably
doesn't.
one of a handful of American reggae bands that I was aware of myself. John Brown's Body was another one, and about 10 or 15 years before us, there was this band called the Blue Rhythm Band out of St. Louis that was all American band. So it was
Yeah,
very few precedents back in those days, and
yeah.
we were kind of on the road playing our own shows that we booked ourselves and staying in motels up and down the East Coast and doing it strictly out of love. We never made that much money. We made enough money to make it through the week, basically. And the band was huge. We had 7 or 8 members ever since our inception. So it was something that we felt like we had to do. We loved it that much.
Okay. All right. Tell us about how did you bag the Barack Obama inauguration?
That's a great question, and I'm probably unable to answer myself, but that was
Okay.
during the period when I was not in the band. That was in '08,
Ah,
so that's tough for me to answer. But
okay.
I'm thinking that with the reputation that the band enjoyed in the Baltimore, Washington area, they must have known somebody that put
Uh-huh.
them on that. That was unfortunately when I was out of the band for a brief spell.
Okay. But you did you perform for the troops or did they do that too?
Yeah, we definitely took about 4 or 5 USO tours in the early 2000s when I was in Jaw Works at the beginning, and we went. Let's see, our first trip I think was to Greenland, which is basically at the top of the world. We went to an air base, United States Air Force base called Thule, and we were a few hundred miles from the North Pole, basically. So we went up there for 10 days,
Sure.
and man, it was an experience and a half. We went up there during the time of year when it's daylight 24/7,
It's like
and we went.
it's like a reggae cruise except different.
Yeah, it's like being on the surface of the moon, playing for about 200 airmen and women. It was unbelievable.
Mhm. Man, sorry.
And then other trips followed. We went through the South Pacific and the Far East, so we went all through Hawaii, Guam, Singapore. We went to the Marshall Islands in Kwajalein. We went to Japan and Korea, and then they took another USO trip or two through the Middle East when I was out of the band for that brief spell too. So
Good.
playing for the U.S. Armed Forces was an amazing opportunity and an amazing experience because you're playing for people who've signed their lives over to serve the country, and they're thousands and thousands of miles from their families and from their homes, and we were so well received. You might be playing for 20 people or 2,000 at a military base. You never knew until you got there. And on
Right.
those armed forces entertainment tours, Chris, you were either playing or you were traveling. You weren't hanging out, taking 3 days off. You were either on a flight
Right.
or on a stage, and that was it.
Right.
They
So
were tough.
that's how it's not like a reggae cruise.
Yeah, it was a lot of work and not a lot of chilling.
Right.
And playing for the
Okay.
military, there was no extracurricular activities either. You know what I mean? Like it was like you were on a military base everywhere you went.
Got it. Okay, let's talk about the Baltimore Annapolis reggae scene.
Yep,
There are a lot of bands that have jumped up that are part of the California ska scene that is putting Maryland on the map, but not none of those bands have roots reggae as their forefront. They're mostly California ska.
yeah,
And
or or
I'm
or
think
punk rock kind of.
or punk, yeah, punk ska. I mean,
Yeah,
that's I can, CMB Reggae considers punk ska outside of the perimeter of reggae that we cover in the Mid Atlantic,
yeah,
but
gotcha.
other people do. But there are bands. I mean, the three bands that come to mind are Ballyhoo, Bumpin' Uglies, and Joint Operation. Also, the Harbor Boys are kind of on the line for what you would consider as the California ska reggae versus the generic punk ska that kind of takes them over to the other side.
Sure.
But as somebody who's been a 20, 30-year veteran in this scene, to see an entire reggae scene come up that is not quite like yours, what's your reaction? I know you perform with a lot of these guys, don't you?
Sure, sure. We play with a lot of these bands, and they're really, really talented bands. And to their own credit, they're getting the kind of notice and publicity that we struggled to get back in the '90s and the early 2000s. We were forging our own path, and there were days when Soldiers of Jah Army, were opening
Yeah.
for Jah Works. We were the 30-something-year-old guys, and Soldier
Huh.
was a bunch of 20-year-old kids, and they were
Right.
opening up for us in their own neighborhood in Northern Virginia. So we've seen all
In
these bands
Arlington.
come up,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest with you, man. It was kind of bittersweet for a while because we were thinking to ourselves, man, what do we have to do to get noticed? And meanwhile, all these bands that have come up in our wake are blowing up. So,
Yeah.
it took an adjustment of sorts, Chris, to kind of wish some of
Okay.
these guys well, because it was not like a competitiveness. We didn't do the same thing, but we couldn't help but feel like, damn, like we kind of
Right.
missed the timing boat, like how are these bands flying out and blowing up and we're still over here playing the local venues? But God's in control, and you don't know what's in store for you, and everybody has their own path. And I think at this point in our career as musicians, guys in Jaw Works are just happy to still be doing it. And we're happy for everyone who finds
I
success
mean,
playing.
I honestly, I think you're doing fine. I saw the audience that you had at Ardmore Music Hall. There wasn't anyone sitting on their hands when you
No,
got
no.
up there. You were doing okay.
We've
You
served our
know.
apprenticeship very, very faithfully, and we're really proud of our musical history and our legacy. We're content, you know what I mean? Never content, but we're very happy.
Right. Okay. So now we get to the relaxing part of the interview where this is just casual conversation and all the bases
Cool.
have been covered. What is the most memorable show you've ever played?
That's a great question, man. I probably have to say a few shows. I mean, one time we played at the Electric Factory opening up for Buju Banton, and that was
Uju
huge.
Banton.
Yeah, that was massive.
Yes.
This is
What
long
year? When
before.
was this?
Oh, this is like 2003, 2004, when like
Uh-huh.
Missy Elliott had that song "Get Your Freak On," "Get Your
Right.
Freak On," and Buju came out,
With
and
the remix of Walk Like a Champion.
nah, man, his band came out and was playing the rhythm to "Get Your Freak On," and Buju comes running out and starts chatting on that, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is wicked." Another Electric Factory memory is when we opened up for UB40 before they split up into two UB40s. It was the one original UB40 with the Ali Campbell and his brother Robin and their
Uh-huh.
horn section, which was famous. And that night, their horn section leader, Brian Travers, talked to our horn section leader, Naughty Rock, and he invited the Jaw Works horn section to come at the last song of the night when UB40 played Peter Tosh's classic Legalize It. So there was UB40 playing Legalize It with their three horn players and Jaw Works three horn players. So there were six horn players
Ah.
up there blowing out
Mhm.
Legalize It with UB40. So that's a crazy memory. But I think probably the best memories I'll always treasure and cherish the most, Chris, is when Jaw Works was playing in Jamaica. We played in Jamaica for about 3 or 4 years in a row doing spring break shows. So we
Mhm.
played two shows a week at Margaritaville and the Grill for the American kids. And then we
Yeah.
got our own shows at other local Jamaican bars on the beach in the Grill, where we played to primarily Jamaican audiences. And we received such an amazing reception, and we're so loved by the Jamaicans that we kind of knew at that point that, you know what, this is the ultimate validation when you have a Jamaican audience
Right.
banging bottles on the stage. They're not throwing the bottles, they're banging them on the stage saying rewind, pull up, come
Yeah.
again. That was when we felt like, you know what, Jaw Works is legit. Like we are received
Yeah.
in the land of reggae.
Now there's something to be said about truth. That's
Yeah,
that's absolutely right.
equal that to me. The experience of getting pulled over on a scooter in Jamaica, and then the policeman recognizes me from the stage the night before and lets me go. That's when I knew I was good. My credentials were intact.
Okay. All right. What is the best, the most superior, the most comfortable, the most welcoming venue you ever performed at?
That's a great question. The House of Blues back in Atlantic City, they were great. They treated us super well.
House of
Um,
Blues, that's attached to Harris? Or where
yeah,
is that?
it used to be at Showboat. I'm not sure where it is now.
Showboat, right,
Yeah,
right. Okay.
that was great. That was a great venue for a while, like in the middle 2000s. I remember playing some really great shows there. Ardmore Music Hall is pretty welcoming. We played the Man Music Center on a huge Jamaican Dave production, which was a huge thrill. Uh, God, yeah, honestly, it's a struggle to name the ones that are so great because there have been literally hundreds and maybe thousands of shows. So some of
Mhm.
these things they don't survive the memory. They're in the
Right.
ether. I lived through them, but
Yeah.
I don't be reminded of them.
Right. No, I was just I asked that question for the purpose of informing other artists that
Right.
there's a total sum of mechanics as to what makes a place that you want to perform to, whether or not you're welcomed, whether the staff is professional,
Sure.
whether the facilities are good enough, whether you have the ability to load in and load out in a way that's not cumbersome,
Yeah.
and everybody kind of has their own thing. And I know that, like, some of this is political. Everybody loves to speak highly of their own home base
Sure.
and all that. But I just put that question in as a way of informing other up and comers and trying to give them a sense of, you know, what are the places that you want to play.
Right. I got you.
So okay, last
Just
question.
as a shout out to the Delaware Valley and Delaware County. Before Sligo existed, it was called Packy's. And Packy's gave Jaw Work some of our earliest shows back in the early 90s. So shout out to Eddie Lawler and the Sligo crew. And nowadays, the owner of Sherry Punjab, that guy's a great guy. I got introduced to him the night that
Pushpinder, Pushpinder
yeah,
Singh.
exactly. Exactly. I
Yes.
met him the night that the Exaltations were playing, and he was super generous and wanted Jaw Works to come there. So hopefully we'll do a show up there at some point.
Hey, look, I mean, you surprised me. I was able to eyeball you. You just kind of showed up and shook Dan's hand, and I was like, "That's Scotty P."
Yeah,
So
man.
anyway,
I love to come out and see those guys when I'm home.
no, I just got out in front of that, and that's how this interview happened. For the
Yeah, I
record,
remember you came up and showed me the sticker, and I was like, "All right, cool, man. Let's do this."
right, right. So, okay, all right. Last question. Um, in terms of anything you would like to plug, I know you have 15 dates playing at Secrets in Ocean City this summer.
Yep.
Any other big festivals? Any other big things you're doing?
I know we're playing Wine in the Woods. That's a big festival down here in the Baltimore area at Merriweather Post Pavilion. I believe we're
Merriweather.
playing Wine in the Woods in June. And those secret shows have become kind of like our linchpin for our summer schedule. We play a weekend a month where we go down there Thursday, Friday, Saturday and play at Secrets in Ocean City, Maryland. So those shows are always a lot of fun for us and for our fans because Secrets is like a club that, most people have never seen in their lives. And it's a trip, it literally feels like you're in Jamaica because they've built on the bay side in Ocean City, Maryland. So you have a beach, you
Yeah.
have tables in the water, you have servers that wade into the bay to serve drinks and food. And so Secrets has become a standard for our summer times. We go down there and we
Right.
set up our stuff, and we don't have to move for 3 days. So that's a rare thing for a band to play one venue for 3 days consecutively,
Yeah.
and you kind of have a captive audience because the place has a crowd of its own. But then it's a reunion every time John Works plays there because we see
Uh,
friends and fans from the last 30 years every time we're there.
I did hear from somebody that if you're in that rotation that they put up your lodging. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
they provide lodging for the band. And so, it's a unique opportunity for us to be at the beach, to have our days free. We're in the ocean swimming and hanging out on the beach. And then, either at 5 o'clock you play from 5 to 9, but more
Yeah.
often we play from 9 to 1 or 9 to 1:30. So it's a tough show because you play 3 1-hour sets each show. Each
Right.
night is 3 1-hour sets.
No, but if you're gonna do that, you gotta. It's better that you do it in a good venue
Yeah.
with good sound and a good draw and all that because
Yeah,
they're
we've been
yeah.
very blessed to play Secrets for as many years as we have. We've been there over 20 years, and a lot of bands have come and gone from that venue, and they lose the gig for this reason or that. And I'm super proud of how Jawworks has been invited back there year after year.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me. I'm sure my audience will find this a great experience. And for all those CMB Reggae fans who are out there listening, continue to tune in every week for original content. And as you all know, once a week we do the Who's Playing Where for everywhere in the Mid Atlantic, from New York to Virginia Beach. Thank you for joining me, Mr.
Thank
Painter,
you. Appreciate you.
and everyone continue to tune in. Take care.
Keep up the good work, my brother.